In India there lived by the banks of a stream a hermit whose prayers chose applause for their theme. He gazed at the flowers and he smiled at the sun. Then he clapped with delight. Lord, he cried, oh, well done.
Well done, Lord, oh, very well done. The mountains that laugh with the gypsy clouds, the fields smile to welcome the sun. All nature sings praises aloud. The fields smile to welcome the sun. All nature sings praises aloud. The trees dance to show their elation. A day on God's earth has begun, and every true heart in creation in speechless wonder is bound. And every true heart in creation in speechless wonder is bound. Well done, Lord, oh, very well done. The joy that you've planted in children's hearts, the thrill known in bearing a son, the hope when a trial departs. The thrill known in bearing a son, the hope when a trial departs. The gladness of men in their labors, of youth and its victories won, are joys of the proof of your labors. How wonderful, Lord, are your arts. Are joys of the proof of your labors. How wonderful, Lord, are your arts. Well done, Lord, oh, very well done. At last I discovered the mystic key, the world's joy, oh, secretive one, replies to your sweetness in me. The world's joy, oh, secretive one, replies to your sweetness in me. For here in my heart lies the answer, your love shedding light like the sun. All life seems to leap like a dancer, when gazing I see only thee. All life seems to leap like a dancer, when gazing I see only thee.
So good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Sunday service here at our Ananda's beautiful temple. And for those of you who don't know us, my name is Swami Devi. This is Swami Jyotish, and we're very happy to be with you. And for those of you who have been with us for different events over the weekend, thank you for the incredible effort that you put out to make it. Every event was just so special. So we'll start by reading from Rays of the One Light, again by Swami Kriyananda. And our reading this week is Reason versus Intuition. It's a very beautiful reading. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramhansa Yogananda. Jesus, when addressing his critics, appealed to reason and common sense. In his training of the disciples, however, he, like all great masters, encouraged in them the development of a higher faculty, soul intuition. For it is only by intuition that spiritual perceptions are achieved. In chapter 16 of the Gospel of St. Matthew, we find Jesus drawing on the intuition of his disciples by asking them, who they thought he was in reality. They immediately understood that what he wanted from them was a subtle answer, not some obvious reply based on his nationality, sex, and the like. Peter it was, at last, who understood and answered the question on its intended level, the spiritual. "Thou art the Christ," he said, "the Son of the living God." And Jesus turned to him, saying, "Blessed art thou, Simon, son of Jonah, for not by human nature was this truth revealed to thee, but by my heavenly Father. And I tell thee this also, thou art Peter, which is to say, a rock, and upon this rock will I build my church, and never will the powers of darkness overwhelm it." Jesus was pleased with his disciple for relating to the question on its deepest level. Reason could not have given Peter that answer. The answer came through the faculty of soul intuition and proved him thereby to be a spiritually advanced disciple. It was his intuitive perception, that insight which cannot be shaken by tempests of reasonable doubt, that Jesus praised in referring to him as a rock. The church he referred to next was the edifice of cosmic consciousness. Any outward church institution would have to depend, as in fact the Christian churches have always done, on the level of understanding of its individual leaders and members. Peter's intuitive perceptions could never have been passed on to an outward succession of prelates. Clarity comes by direct soul perception. Confusion results from excessive dependence on reason as the guide to understanding. As the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita states, when your intellect, at present, confused by the diversity of teaching in the scriptures, becomes steadfast in the ecstasy of deep meditation, then you will achieve final union with God. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om,
And also, good morning to all of those of you who are joining us online. It's nice to be with you. As Devi said, we've had a wonderful, wonderful weekend together. And this is the final hurrah for us for this trip, but it's really been a joy for us to be here. So I'll start with a reading, beautiful reading from Whispers from Eternity. You know, Master, this is a really central book to our path. Master said that when I am gone, read my whispers from eternity because I will speak to you through them. So Master is speaking to us through this one. These are prayer demands. This is a prayer demand to the holy vibration for omnipresence. O holy vibration, boom on the shores of my consciousness. Break the limiting boundary of my body consciousness. Reverberate through my body, mind, and soul, through my surroundings, through all the cities and lands of this earth, through all the planets, throughout the universe and every atom particle of creation. Unite my consciousness with thy cosmic consciousness. So that's the state of consciousness that we're after. And logic is, I would say, to one extent, logic is a stepping stone. But to a larger extent, logic is a limitation. You know, here we are, we're cosmic beings. We're part of everything that is. In fact, we're the consciousness that creates everything that is. And yet we're sitting here worrying about whether we're going to get a parking ticket or not. So there's a little bit of a disconnect between the realm of intuition, which understands our great nature, and the realm of logic, which allows us to function in this world. So we can think of logic really not as the way we perceive reality, but the way we limit reality. Right now, as we're sitting here, there are television programs playing through the room, radio programs, there are cosmic particles flowing through us. As we sit here, there are millions and billions of neutrinos that are flowing through us right now. We have no perception of any of this with our logical mind, because our logical mind is what allows us to function in this world that's built upon a kind of a limitation of reality. It's a dream world. And just as our consciousness is vaster than what we have in a dream, in the dream world, we have a kind of dream perception. And so if we didn't have that dream perception in the dream, we couldn't perceive the dream as a sense of reality. And so this logical function of our mind is really not the way we perceive the world, as I say, but the way that we limit the world to that which we can deal with. It's if we weren't quite ready for it, and we were trying to drive down the street and we were perceiving all of the television and radio programs and cosmic particles flowing through us, we'd likely get in an accident. And yet, did we really get in an accident? Last night, if you got in an accident in a dream, did you really get in an accident? In the dream world, you did. In the dream reality, you did. But in the broader reality, you didn't. That's why Ananda Moy Ma, when asked about something, she said, neither is it, nor is it not, nor is it, nor is it not again. And so, what is reality? You know, it is at the level at which it seems it is, but at a greater level it is not. So if I'm holding up however many fingers, how many fingers am I holding up? 2. That's your logical mind saying that. Your intuition is saying, he isn't holding up anything. He's just consciousness. So there's this vast reality out there that we're trying to get to, and we cannot get to it through the logical mind. There's a beautiful chant that Master wrote, and it's got a line in it, when my mind has gone to rest, that's the time I see him best. And there's another chant that thee I find behind the fringe of my mind. So the logical mind kind of prevents us from perceiving reality. And that's why when Jesus asked the disciples, who am I? If they were functioning with their logical mind, they answered on the level of logic. And, you know, for us, all these centuries later, we read the Bible, and what we see in the Bible is the kind of cherry-picked incidences of miracles and dramatic events. But imagine that you're one of the disciples. You've been traveling with Jesus for the last 3 years. That's just mathematically, let's say you've been traveling with him for 1,000 days. And there have been dusty roads and hard beds, and you've all shared that, and meals and so on. And then there have been these incidences, but from that viewpoint, it's harder to see the reality of this consciousness beyond the body, beyond the person that you've been mingling with. And so Jesus now asks them, who am I in reality? And they have to break that kind of miasma of you're the person that we've been walking around with and breaking bread with for the last 1,000 days. No, you're something more than that. That doesn't come through the logical mind. The logical mind sees all of the incidences and tries to put them together. So there's also a beautiful chapter in the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna, who has known Krishna, they're cousins, he's known Krishna since the days of his childhood. And now this great war of the Mahabharata is taking place, and Krishna is acting as the charioteer for Arjuna. And at the eve of the battle, they stop, and Krishna imparts to Arjuna the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, the whole, one could say the whole of the spiritual path in a thin little book is given there. Great, great scripture. But there's a beautiful chapter in that scripture where Arjuna says, Krishna, let me see you as you truly are. And Krishna says to him, thou canst not see me with mortal eyes. I must give thee sight divine. And so he awakens the intuition. And then the rest of the chapter is Arjuna perceiving the cosmos and the elements and all people and all time and all space. And it's extremely expansive. And then after that, there comes a point where the hairs on the arms of Arjuna are standing on the end, and his hair is standing up. And he says, this is too much for me, Krishna. Let me see you again as my friend and as my companion. And if I've ever said anything in jest or in any way insulted you, please forgive me, having seen that cosmic element of who Krishna is. Well, we can think what a wonderful experience that was for Arjuna to see Krishna as he really was. But what the real story here is that Arjuna mainly is functioning through the logical mind and therefore cannot perceive Krishna as he is. But it isn't Krishna. We functioning through the logical mind cannot perceive who we are, because we are Christ. We are Krishna. We are that cosmic consciousness. But the limitation of the logical mind allows us to function. The soul, which has been incarnating for tens of thousands of lifetimes, is now shrunk down to this particular little body and this personality. And the logical mind allows us to function in that way, but it blocks us from seeing the greater aspect of it. And so that's why in this beautiful passage in the Bible, Jesus says to Peter, having perceived the reality through the intuition, he says, that intuition is the rock upon which I will build my church. Well, for us, our intuition is the rock upon which we will build the church of reality that we'll be able to perceive at some point. And so gradually, what we do in meditation is to try to withdraw the energy from the senses and from the logical mind, let the logical mind settle down and stop interfering with our perception of reality, And if we can do that, then our intuition awakens, or as I should more properly say, as we do that to whatever extent, our intuition presents itself more and more completely, until finally we're perceiving reality through the power of intuition. And then once we perceive that, then there's no more argument about what is and what isn't, and is it there or is it not there? It is both there and it is not there. I'll just end by saying this is not a very cosmic example, but I don't know if you've ever seen those posters, or sometimes they're on sheets of paper where there's a lot of just squiggly lines. And then if you unfocus your eyes, if you look through them, all of a sudden they turn into a picture of something. One time I was in a gift store. I think I was traveling and it was in an airport. I can't remember exactly. But at any rate, there was a poster like that behind the desk. And there was another man standing with me. And he said, "What is that?" Thinking that's an ugly kind of a picture to have hanging on your wall. I, knowing what it was, I was looking at it. And if you look through it and your eyes are unfocused, then all of a sudden your brain reinterprets what's there. And I was looking at it and I said, "Oh, that's the Statue of Liberty with a gull flying by it." And the guy looked at me like, "Are you nuts? It's a bunch of squiggly lines." Now, I'm using as an example of the logical mind. He could have said 1,000 words to me trying to convince me that it was just squiggly lines. But having perceived it, there was no logic that could convince me. If we perceive the reality through the intuition, logic has no power over us. The limitation of logic has no power over us. That's the journey we're on. And at some point, we're going to finish that journey, and then we'll come back and try to explain those squiggly lines to other people. God bless you all.
I'll also share a few thoughts this morning. One of the pivotal chapters in Autobiography of a Yogi is an experience in cosmic consciousness. And in that chapter, Master he's a young man still when this happens, and all of his life he's been struggling to perceive, to experience cosmic consciousness, to perceive the reality behind this world of Maya, of delusion. And he finally finds safe harbor at the feet of his guru, Sri Yukteswar, and he's in his guru's ashram. But it wasn't the right time yet, and so I have to find something else, not leaving his guru, but he went off into the Himalayas, even though Sri Yukteswar tried to discourage him. And then he has experiences that don't bring him what he wants. And then finally he comes back rather shamefaced to Sri Yukteswar's ashram. And he's meditating one morning up in an upstairs room, and Sri Yukteswar calls him. He hadn't received the name Yogananda at this point. He still had his boyhood name, Mukunda. And Master doesn't respond. And Sri Yukteswar again says, "Mukunda!" And Master calls down, "I'm meditating, sir." And Sri Yukteswar says, "I know how you're meditating, with your mind like dry leaves in the autumn wind." And again, shamefacedly, he comes down. And Sri Yukteswar says, "Poor boy, the Himalayas couldn't give you what you wanted." And then he just taps him lightly on the heart, and he goes into a state of cosmic consciousness. And what does that mean? I mean, we read cosmic consciousness. I think really in all of spiritual literature, his description of cosmic consciousness is a rare presentation of what it is. Because first he sees his consciousness begins to expand, and he can perceive through the walls of the ashram, into the street, 360 degrees, front and back, all around, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then he sees the earth, and then beyond the earth, and the solar system, and galaxies, and the stars beyond reach of the physical mechanisms. And then finally, it all comes down to this. He said, I realize that all of the universe, all of creation, originated from a point of intuitive perception in the human heart. That's what it all comes down to. A point of all of creation, a point of intuitive perception in the human heart. And when Swami, and then to finish the story, of course, then Sri Yukteswar taps him again, and he has to come back to a body and kind of stunned. And then Sri Yukteswar hands him a broom, said, let's go sweep the porch. You have much to do still in this lifetime. Wonderful example of what our lives can be, and in fact are. And when Swami gave some lectures that we made into a book, Intuition for Starters, and he said, when you want to develop your intuition, he gave a technique, concentrate at the spiritual eye and hold a thought there. Maybe you have a question for guidance or understanding or just merely expansion of consciousness, and hold it there at the spiritual eye. And then he said, then receive it. Receive the guidance, receive the intuitive perception in your, not the physical heart, of course, but the heart chakra, the heart center. And so it's very interesting, you know, when we practice meditation, when we talk about what's reality, we can make it very abstract and far away. But it all comes down to the perception of our own heart. And that's one of the things that meditation helps you to do, is to trust that. Yes, I am. This isn't just my feelings, but this is a higher guidance that I'm receiving in the area of the heart. And there's a beautiful soul who incarnated in the 19th century and into the 20th. He was born a slave in the southern states of America, George Washington Carver, and he became a great botanist. He was able to transcend the Civil War and all the dissolving, which still isn't over yet, dissolving of racial prejudice. But he was able to discover many, many uses and new species of plants. And he said something so beautiful. He said, everything in nature will speak to you if you love it enough. And that's where all his discoveries came from. He loved it. He loved the plants. He loved the world around him, no matter how it treated him. But that ability to perceive the unity with all of life, with all people, doesn't matter, young, old, nation, national orientation, any of it. It's that point of intuitive perception in the human heart that makes us feel our unity with everything. And there's just to be able to do that is so rewarding. Some of you may be familiar with this disciple of Master, Kamala Silva. She wrote a beautiful, beautiful book called The Flawless Mirror. She was with Master she and her mother. She met him when she was a teenager, and Master would come and stay. They had a little house by the ocean, she and her mother, and he would come and stay with them. And in fact, we were in the Los Angeles area. We were visiting some dear friends in Los Angeles, a very wonderful couple originally from India, Padma and Arnab. And they took us to the area of the coast, Southern California coast, where Kamala Silva's mother where the house was, where they lived. And they said, and then they pointed to a rock out just off the shoreline, and they said, people say this is where Master used to sit and meditate, right there. And we couldn't go down there because it was a steep cliff now, but we just sat and meditated and tried to feel Master's presence. But Kamala wrote this beautiful book called The Flawless Mirror about her miraculous experiences with Master. And in her old age, as happens to many, Kamala developed Alzheimer's, and she had no family. She had no one to care for her. So Swamiji said, let's bring her here to Ananda village, and we'll care for her here. And we did for many years. And someone commented to Swami after, it was very interesting. Her mind wasn't clear, but she just had this delightful nature. And the first time we brought her over to the Crystal Hermitage, those of you who have been there know it's a beautiful garden and building. And Swami, and we have many satsangs and gatherings there. And in April we have beautiful tulip gardens. And really last year, 20,000 people came to see the tulips. But and Swami had a little apartment downstairs, not very big. But it was through his inspiration and energy that the whole thing was built. And so we brought Kamala in, and we said to her, this is where Swami Kriyananda lives. And she looked around, she goes, he would take a room in a place like this. And she was so funny. But her mind was pretty much gone due to Alzheimer's. And someone said to Swamiji, how sad, she was this great disciple and now she just can't even remember who people are. And Swami just said, what difference does it make? It's only the mind. Her consciousness is still what it always was. And the point came where we couldn't care for her anymore at the village because she would be wandering off in the woods at night, and it was dangerous for her. We lost her a few times and had to put out rescue parties to find her. So we found an assisted living home where she could go. And talking about the mind doesn't really perceive, but the intuitive perception of the heart can see the beauty in each soul, can feel the unity with each soul. And so one of our members who had been caring for her at Ananda village and had formed a nice bond went to visit Kamala in the assisted living facility where she was. And she went into her room, which was a shared room with another person living there. But this other woman in her room, sharing the next bed over, had been in a terrible fire, and her face was just very badly burnt and disfigured. And our friend who was visiting had the thought, oh, poor Kamala, she has to look at that very disfigured face every day. And Kamala, from her intuitive perception, she just said, have you seen my roommate? Isn't she beautiful? And that's how she saw it, because she perceived intuitively who that soul really was. And there was nothing that, even though her mind wasn't clear, she still felt that unity with all of life and saw the beauty of all of life. And so, friends, to use the mind, the rational mind, we have to do it in this age of technology where every day they're improving our little pieces of equipment and we can't figure out how to use them. But we have to use it. But just as that little footnote in Autobiography of a Yogi where Sir Thomas Eddington, who is a great scientist, is quoted, he said, he was a physicist, I believe, he said, the more I try to understand the nature of this world on a rational level, the more I think it's all made of mind stuff, meaning consciousness. It's all consciousness, that's all it is. And so the more we can understand the key to perceiving everything as consciousness. The key to, oops, somebody wants to go outside. The key to opening the heart, it's as simple as that. It's to not be afraid to love and not be afraid to go through life with an open heart, no matter how the world treats us. It doesn't matter. Swami Kriyananda was such a beautiful example of that. He had received many, many blows in his life from the organization that was carried on after Master, from people betraying him here and there, but he never lost that openness of heart. And there was one man who was speaking very, very negatively about Swami, and there was some gathering, it was a public hearing about Ananda, and this man was going to speak against Ananda, that we were using too much water or something like that. And Swami just went up to him and said, you know, I might be the devil incarnate, but it's not your problem. Just don't worry about it. And he said it when we were standing next to him when he did that, with so much compassion, not defensive or critical or pushing back. He was just saying, you're not going to be happy as long as you judge the world. Just whatever people are or aren't, it's not our problem. Just love them. That's all we're coming to this world to do. We're trying to be channels for God. And what is God? God is love. God is joy. He isn't some abstract, cold force that dominates us. He's just love. And if we want to be one with him, we have to not be afraid to let the intuitive perception of love and unity for all life just to flow through us. So it's a very nice way to live. It's much easier than trying to figure it all out with your mind, which we never can really do anyway. So thank you again for sharing this weekend with us, and God bless you.
Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, she who made the universe. Yes, it's she, the Divine Mother, ruler of every heart's desire. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in thee. Love more ancient, bliss eternal, may our hearts soon be merged in